Hello everyone! Welcome to another one of our Thoughts on Cruising Destinations videos. The more observant of you will notice that we did not do one for Sri Lanka, and there's a reason for that. We didn't actually take the boat anywhere in Sri Lanka, so that's why we skipped that one. But we did go quite a few places in the Maldives. How many in fact?
We went to 15 different islands in the Maldives and spent 8 weeks cruising there.
So we feel pretty well qualified to talk about cruising the Maldives. So we're going to jump right in and talk about...
Formalities! Yay!
The most exciting part.
Cruising the Maldives is not a simple and straightforward thing. You do have to hire an agent and you have to get a cruising permit. We used Assad from Real Seahawks, who lives in Ulugamu, which is where most of the cruisers clear in, and we think it went pretty well.
Yeah, he was very helpful, responsive. He's lobbied hard for cruisers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but yeah, definitely would be willing to recommend him.
Yeah. The other thing about the Maldives that we didn't really like was that it was really expensive, and we paid about $1,300 to cruise there for 2 months. Now, that being said, Assad has been working hard, along with, I'm sure, a bunch of other yacht service people, to provide cruising permits at a lower cost in the Maldives. And starting this year, they are greatly reducing the cost of the cruising permit. For example, we paid anchorage fees per day, up to $12 per day, and now there are no anchorage fees for the first 30 days in the Maldives. So that's a huge cost-saving difference.
That's a big step, yep.
Yeah. And a lot of the other fees are reduced as well, so it should be a lot less expensive to cruise there than what we paid.
Yeah, definitely good. So make sure that you contact an agent before you go. They can give you kind of an update on what the exact situation is now, for sure. Now, one of the things that Assad did do for us, and this was one of the things we did not particularly like about the Maldives, was that the agents have to complete a traveling schedule. And I'm not 100% sure how that's going to be with all these new rules and regulations that are in place, but for us, we had a limit of 8 places that were on that list that we were allowed to go. Most of those places were like the commercial ports, not really where we were interested in going. So the word on the street was that if you went to some of the abandoned islands in the Maldives, and there are still quite a lot of them, that would be okay because there's no one to report you. If you went into some of the local islands with a village on them, then you took a bit more of a risk, because if someone reported you, you could be fined.
That's kind of the history of tourism in the Maldives, because for a long time they were only open to all-inclusive resorts. So foreigners could only come in to what they called an uninhabited resort island. So it's not like there was a village and local people there.
Yeah, and so that is slowly changing. You can hear with some of the rules on the cruising permits. Also, some of the local islands are starting to develop themselves for tourism, and they have little guest houses and very small hotel type things that are being developed on some of these islands. So it is slowly changing. We took the risk and went to some of those islands with a village on them, because you have to get provisions somewhere, and everyone we met was super friendly, very interested to talk to us, so
and we really enjoyed that. We interacted with locals in a really cool way.
Yeah, and so that was a lot of fun, but it was definitely kind of one of those, you took your risk and wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but it ended up okay for us.
Yeah. Now, about partway through our visit, Assad contacted us and said that we needed to rent a tracking device from the government at $200 for the rental and $6 per day, I think. And that would be a way that the government would restrict our movements. Now, thankfully, that never came to fruition, which kind of says a little bit about the Maldivian government. And the tracking device is no longer required as of this year with the new rules. And boats that are registered with AIS will not need a tracking device. So I don't know if that means that you have to keep your AIS on all the time, or you just have to have it. We have been to countries before that AIS is required, but you don't have to keep it on. So I don't really understand why it matters, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's changed for the better.
Yeah, so that is another one of those things that Assad and the other agents have been working on. Hopefully that will continue to improve throughout time. Now, for clearing out, that was a little bit of a challenge. It did require a 48-hour notice, which you're very close to the equator. We were heading down to Chagos. The weather is very, very much unknown and changeable, so 48 hours notice was a challenge.
It was really hard, yeah.
Fortunately, when we were able to find a window and gave the agents notice, they worked hard, they got the clearance as quickly as they could, and we were able to leave and get out. So that was nice. But one thing to count on is 48 hours notice is a long time for most countries.
Yes. Now, the Maldives is a Muslim country, and that does concern, it does come with a few concerns. There are bikini beaches that are designated areas on inhabited islands where you can dress appropriately, dress in whatever you want. But other than that, you do have to cover your shoulders and your knees. So keep that in mind. All-inclusive resorts, the whole island, you can run around in your bikini. On a regular island, you have to stick to the designated bikini beach area.
And this is something we talk about in all the countries we go to, is that you're in their country, so follow their rules and customs. And, dressing appropriately is an important issue for the Maldives, and so we followed that no problem. So that's just kind of the way it is. Now, we're going to move on and talk about some of our general thoughts on anchoring and navigating in the Maldives, and this probably comes as no surprise, it's a challenge. So, anchoring, the anchorages were generally very, very deep. I think we anchored in a few that were almost 100 feet deep, which we have 300 feet of chain on the boat. Barely 3-to-1 scope, made a little nervous, but fortunately, there's no wind in the Maldives, so we don't have to worry too much about a big blow coming through and pushing us around, stuff like that.
Now, generally there's no wind, but we did have some westerlies blow through when we were there. And another issue with the Maldives is that they are very, very short islands.
Yeah, 8 feet is like the
maximum
highest
height
in all of the Maldives. 8 feet high.
Yeah.
That's it.
So there's no wind protection whatsoever when the wind does blow in.
Yeah, and there's some protection from easterly winds, but from the west, not a whole lot. So that was a bit of a challenge.
There's some protection from easterly waves and swell, but not easterly wind.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some islands, there are so many islands, you could probably find one. But where we were, there wasn't. So that was a challenge. But definitely recommend satellite images if you're going to cruise here are a must, both for helping to find an anchorage, but then also to navigate in through all of the reefs. And pretty much all of these islands have atolls surrounding them. So you have to be able to find the entrance into the reef, which is a challenge. You definitely want to keep an eye out on the bow, but satellite images makes life a lot easier. And we were able to find some really cool spots that we wouldn't have gone to otherwise if we didn't have those images. So
yeah, absolutely.
that made definitely a big difference. Now, there is kind of few anchorages that I would call are definitely off limits.
Yes, as we've mentioned, there are a lot of all-inclusive resorts in the Maldives, and when your guests are paying $1,000 a night or more, they don't want sailing boats rocking up and anchoring off their island.
Guess we're not high-class clientele or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so you have to make sure that the resort that owns the island you're going to will allow you to anchor there if you want to. Resorts are the only place to get alcohol in the Maldives. There's no alcohol sold in stores. And some resorts do allow cruisers, to buy a day pass to the resort, which would be a cool opportunity if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. You have to kind of research if there's going to be a private resort on the islands you're looking to go to. Something to keep in mind.
The Lux Resort is like $400 for a day pass, so no thank you.
Yeah, that's a little out of budget, I think. But
yeah.
Fortunately, though, there are quite a lot of anchorages in the Maldives that you can choose from. So you got plenty of others you can go to.
Yeah, so we have our 4 favorite anchorages. Number 1 was Ulugamu, which is the island that we cleared into and where Assad lives. The people were super friendly, and Assad gets the community together to do stuff for the cruisers. So we had a bonfire on the beach. We had dinner at someone's house. I learned how to make roti. It was
about the best welcome we've ever had into a country. They were just so incredibly welcoming and friendly. It was our anniversary when we arrived there too.
They made us an anniversary
cake and a celebration. I mean, it's one of the special memories that we have for sure. So it was a pretty awesome spot. Now,
and the water was super clear. We anchored in about 50 feet in Ulugamu, and we could see the bottom, see the chain, and the water is just stunningly beautiful there.
Yeah.
We had some really good snorkeling. Not great snorkeling, but the visibility in the water was really good there.
Something we weren't used to for quite a while before that, so it was a nice change.
Yeah.
Now, our second favorite anchorage, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name, but I will put a link or the name somewhere down here so you can see it. Yeah, subtitle it. It was super deep.
K Island.
Yeah. This was one of those that was like 100 feet deep, and it was literally like we were anchoring in a blue hole. There was just a very shallow shelf all the way around us, and then a giant blue hole. It was so cool. I thought it was such an awesome just visual being in that spot. The snorkeling, you can find this as a theme in the Maldives, wasn't super amazing, but it was some of the best that we'd had while we were in the Maldives. So that made it pretty memorable, I thought. And my second favorite anchorage was, I'm going to try to pronounce this one, Dolhiyadu. I think I'm pretty close. That's where we did...
D Island.
That's where we went and toured that abandoned resort, which was just one of the most unique things we have done on our entire circumnavigation. It was really cool to just be on that island all by ourselves and tour what would have been like a 5-star luxury resort. It was pretty special. So that one stuck out in my mind for sure.
Absolutely. But my favorite island in the Maldives that we went to was Dagura. And part of what made Dagura so interesting was that we had a kind of a guest house that we made friends with one of the activities coordinators, and so Chloe was able to give us a lot of information about the island. They have the best snorkeling that we had, which is not saying a lot for the Maldives. But the area also has manta rays. We saw a manta ray. Mm-hmm. And we did see a whale shark.
It was like technically there.
Way down there.
Technically.
But whale sharks are all year round in the Maldives, and that island is the location of the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program. So that was pretty interesting. We did a long walk on the beach a couple times. Yep. And we dined at the Dagura Bliss restaurant, which is the guest house that Chloe worked for. So I thought it was a really fun stop. We brought Madeline and Molly there with us and had a fun time wakeboarding.
And Gina and Easy left from there too. So it was kind of a nice mix of just about everything in the Maldives. You had some good clear water. You had some good activities on land. It was a nice spot, I thought.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. Now,
where we wish we'd gone. Well, it would have been fun to check out a resort island.
One that wasn't abandoned. Let me put the asterisk on that one, where there were actual people and resort activities.
Yeah. And in my research, I found that there are places for as little as $25 that can let you buy a day pass and go explore the resort. So that would have been nice.
Yeah.
But I think we did a pretty good job.
We did a pretty solid job. No regrets. It would have been cool to see, for sure. But there are definitely a couple spots we wouldn't go back to, and not like saying you should avoid these, because you kind of have to go to these if you want to provision and do some stuff like that. But Malé is the capital island, and Himafushi is the island that was just to the north of it where we actually anchored. Yep. Now Himafushi is where we were when those westerlies blew in, and there was no protection.
Yeah.
I swear we had like meter swells breaking in the anchorage, short period. It was wickedly uncomfortable.
Little Dipper was like coming out of the waves and slamming back down.
So it wasn't not super great there. Malé did have good provisionings, and that's where we were able to pick up Gene and Easy, so that was why we stopped there for a while. To go to Malé itself would have required with your boat would have required additional permissions and paperwork and stuff, so we elected not to do that, but just stay at Himafushi and take the ferry. So, it's not one of those, it's not why you go to the Maldives for those islands. It's just you go there because you need to pick up food or guests or whatever.
Necessities.
So yeah. But that's, I think, the only place I can really think of that we wouldn't go back to if we could avoid it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, other places were interesting. So
Now, next topic: sailing conditions in the Maldives. I know this is the one you guys are always interested to hear. I don't have a whole lot to report for you because there was like no wind while we were there. We were pretty stoked the few times the wind actually picked up enough for us to be able to sail, but we burned a lot of diesel while we were going from the north to the south. I think we had to fill up 3 times while we were in the Maldives in 8 weeks.
Yeah, and a lot of our friends...
That's a record in there.
Our friends use a lot of diesel too. It is just really hot, and it's one of the only places in the world that we had trouble sleeping at night. So
yeah, I slept outside for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Never happened before.
It's tough.
So we'd have to motor places. We did actually use diesel to run the generator just for air conditioning a few days, just because it was so bloody hot. I can hear you judging us back there, but trust me when I say it was just so hot. It was, It was worth the diesel burn for sure. But
Yeah.
just be aware that you're on the equator, so there's not a lot of wind, so you're gonna have to motor if you're gonna go through the Maldives.
Snorkeling and diving in the Maldives is frankly disappointing. There was a coral bleaching a couple years ago, and so most of the coral we saw was pretty dead. There was quite a bit of fish, and the snorkeling was worth doing anyways because the water is so beautiful.
Yeah.
But the coral was...
It was really depressing to see just that much dead coral. I think Degura was about the only place I can think of in my memory that really had some significant amount of live coral. But that's like one place out of 15 that we stopped, and that's not a good ratio.
And I think that's because it was like the outside of the big atoll instead of the Degura Island atoll. It was the Ari atoll, and we were snorkeling on the edge of that. So I do hear like if you go diving, the coral is supposed to be better because of the temperature moderation that happens deeper down the water. But we actually didn't go diving, so we can't really speak to that. However, the megafauna in the Maldives is really good. The Ba Atoll, BAA Atoll, is a UNESCO Biosphere recognized area for its manta rays, and we did see a couple manta rays.
He loves the manta rays.
Yes, and then as I mentioned before, Degura has the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program, and that is a really fascinating place where you can see whale sharks all year round. So that was really neat. Provisioning was actually pretty good. There were some things that we had a hard time finding, but every island gets deliveries from Malé for fresh produce, and all of it's imported, of course, so they're not growing broccoli in the Maldives. But there were big supermarkets in Malé, and we happened to, a lot of times, come into the supermarket the day of the deliveries, so that was really good.
That's the key. You got to try to time your stops to these little markets on each island for when the supply ship gets there.
Yes. But we were able to eat pretty well in the Maldives, and that was fine. Ghan also was excellent for provisioning, just like Malé, and we were able to buy a lot of stuff for our transit over to Seychelles.
Now, I will say that when we went to Uligamu, they took us to the farm on the island, and I was actually fairly surprised by how much stuff they were growing on the island.
Yeah, peppers and watermelons and eggplants, lots of stuff like that. Hot weather stuff, guys.
For sure.
Now, you may have seen the video where I had to go visit the doctor in the Maldives. That was fun. I got an infection in my ear, and it ended up being a dead bug.
It was gross.
Which happens to cruisers because you're cleaning the bottom of your boat or going snorkeling a lot, and something dies in there and you don't know it. But I was very pleased with the medical care that I received. My doctor had studied overseas and had excellent English and bedside manner, so that was really nice. And it was insanely cheap. I think I paid $30 USD for my antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, anti-congestion, and 2 vitamins he prescribed to me. So I was pretty pleased with my medical care there.
Yeah, it's something we generally try to avoid when we're in countries, just, try to stay healthy. But when it's there, it's nice to know that it is fairly competent and reasonably cost, which is nice. Now, I'm going to move on to the last segment, which I always talk about, and that's internet access, which is more and more important all the time. And the Maldives, I was fairly surprised, actually, by there was a Diragu, I think, word down here, was the service provider we went with, and they had pretty solid 4G coverage throughout most of the Maldives, including some of the uninhabited islands we went to.
Yeah.
Because I think they were set up to kind of transmit all along down the inhabited islands, so even the uninhabited ones were fairly well covered. It was pretty cheap. I think the prices have gone up a little bit. I looked up the prices this morning before we recorded this. They've gone up a bit since we were there. It's now about $1.50 per gigabyte for a 50 gig package. But that's not bad for a lot of places we've been. So it was nice. We were able to upload videos. Speeds were fast. Worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so we were happy.
Yeah. And I think that's 10 thoughts right there. So we're going to wrap up and say that, a lot of people have been asking us, would you go back to the Maldives? We go back and forth on this one a lot, but I think the short answer is going to be no. But there's a big but here. That's because if we were to circumnavigate again, we would likely take the southern Indian Ocean route and not go back up through Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So because of that, we wouldn't need to stop in the Maldives as a way to get through the Indian Ocean.
I do think that the Maldives is a very beautiful place, and if you're into the all-inclusive resort thing, then that is the place to go because they do it really well. The water is beautiful and it's very clear, so that's a lot of perks. But for cruising, I mean, we like hiking, we like wildlife, and we like snorkeling, and those
aren't the top things the Maldives offers.
They're not the strengths of the Maldives.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's okay. I'm glad we went. We checked it out. I think we did a really thorough job looking at the islands.
Yeah,
so.
it was a good stop, but it's one that we crossed off the list, and so we're good.
Yeah.
But, all right, that sums up 10 thoughts on cruising the Maldives. I hope you enjoyed it, learned a little something, and we'll be back next time with another regular scheduled video, but we got more of these thoughts coming up for the rest of the Indian Ocean, so make sure you stick around, check them out. We'll see y'all next time.